one look at the list of Tampa Bay players honored with a spot on a Major League Baseball All-Star team, and you'll be reminded why the Midsummer Classic is so special. In its first 20 years, can't-miss prospects are mingled with those who some didn't think would even make it to the big leagues. Regardless of pedigree, they've all earned a permanent place in franchise history by being recognized as one of the game's best. If you were going to pick a name off the original 1998 Tampa Bay Devil Rays opening day roster to be the team's first ever All-Star representative, there were some obvious choices. You could have gone with a veteran fielder like Fred McGriff, or Wade Boggs, or maybe starter Wilson Alvarez, or closer Roberto Hernandez. As it turned out, none of them would make the trip to the Mile High City. That honor would go to someone who, prior to the start of that inaugural season, was something of a mystery to most of his teammates and Major League Baseball.
Spring training, when we first couple of weeks, I was over by the fence after a workout, and a fan came over to me and handed me a baseball card from Cuba from Rojo, and I looked at the back of it, and it was a lot of years, and I said, I got to figure this out because I'm not so sure the age we have is going to be the right age, but at that point, who cared? He could pitch and he could help us win games, and he did. He pitched really well for us.
Rolando was, we knew in spring training he was kind of different. He was fun to catch for me because all these different arm angles, he would drop down, he would come over the top, and he was kind of creative. From a catcher, that was fun. That was, this is what you wanted to work with. And I think we saw early on in that year, especially the first half, he wanted it. Like, he wanted to show what he could do.
I think he would tell you his biggest fear was defecting, probably. Because if he got caught, it was going to be detrimental. But, crossing over and pitching in the big leagues, he had to compete in Cuba, and he probably faced better players there than he did sometime in the big leagues, But, he would tell you that pitching in the big league was like an everyday occasion for him.
A seasoned pitcher with years of experience playing for the Cuban national team, Rojo quickly proved he was ready for the show. After the Devil Rays lost their opener, Rojo would get the start in Game 2, pitching 6 innings to pick up his first big league win while giving the franchise its first ever victory.
Creo que fue muy especial.
It's a very special moment, just like my championship games in Barcelona when I was pitching for the Cuban team.
That first start was just the beginning for Rojo, who quickly established himself as the team's top starter.
Rolando was the ace. He was a fierce competitor, person that you can talk to and plan the game for him easily, because he had every trick up his sleeve. He threw from all different angles, with velocity, with control.
Every angle and every type of breaking ball, but if he needed power, he could reach back and get it. He just knew how to pitch. He knew how to hit the brakes, hit the accelerator, and change speeds on breaking balls and locate them and do things that, most young pitchers aren't going to do. And it suited him really well for the American League East.
Trataba de entrenar fuerte.
I paid a lot of attention to whatever the pitching coach was telling me, and also Larry Rothschild, but I also had the desire to succeed, and I desired to win. I trained and worked hard during the season just to maintain to be able to compete in a 162-game season.
An outstanding first half earned Rojo another first for him and the organization, a spot on the 1998 American League All-Star team.
He was certainly the best player for the Rays probably in their first half. He was dominant. The numbers he had, wins and losses, he had great stuff. The league didn't know him, so that was a benefit that he took advantage of. When the pitcher is not known real well, and it took them a while to catch up to him, and he took real advantage of that in that first half.
He knew he had something to prove. He was a guy who had a chip on his shoulder. I'm going to show you what I can do, and that's what he did that first half. I don't know if he settled in after that, but it was definitely a guy that wanted to show everybody, this is what I'm about, this is what I can do. I'm unconventional, but I'm going to win ball games, and he did that.
Es el más especial.
My best year ever, and it was the most important year for me because I got to learn this great country, got to see a lot of this great country, got to do a lot. Also in baseball, taking your first step in your first year was a learning experience, and it's one thing that I take with me, is that was my best year.
When you're an expansion club, placed in a division with a Yankee team that's in the middle of winning 4 World Series titles, gauging progress can be tricky. But if you're measuring success strictly by wins and losses, the '99 Devil Rays definitely improved, winning 6 more games than the inaugural team. A big part of that success was a veteran closer who not only racked up 43 saves,
Strike call on the outside corner,
but took it upon himself to be a leader and a mentor.
When you're trying to build up a lot of young guys on the roster, and you're going into Yankee Stadium, and and you see the histories of the championships, you see an all-star in almost every position. They put their socks on the same way we do. They tie their shoelaces the same way we do. It's between the lines is where you got to go play.
When you walk in a major league locker room, you know the presence of certain people take you, and Roberto always had that. The one thing I always respected about him is he may give up a home run. I remember Chipper Jones getting him in this ballpark. The next night, you call on him to save, here he comes again. No fear, came with his best stuff every night.
I felt like I let the team down my first year because I came in hurt and I wasn't 100%. So I took it upon myself to make sure that I was physically, mentally capable and ready to pitch every day. Every day. My mentality was get the ball to me in the 9th inning.
swing and a miss, it's all over.
You knew '98 was, he was good, but he wasn't quite what I'd seen, and I'd seen him pitch, and so '99 he was back to being what he was capable of, and really aggressive with everything, and he wasn't afraid to come after people, and he had the stuff to do it, and I think you saw it all come to fruition in that year, and he nailed down games when we needed him nailed down, and it was really helpful, and it was fun to watch.
I think in '98, '99 the same way for Roberto, because I think of him as a guy. I think of him as a personality. You mentioned saves and all that stuff. That's great. He had a great year in '99, but I think of him as somebody in our organization that you could count on every day. Not just to get the job done, but to be the same guy every day and to bring a leadership and a winning mentality to our team. I thought it was huge.
He is one of the guys that he never give up. He was like, I want the ball. Get me to the 9th inning, I will give you my best. He has a lot of confidence, he throws hard, and a great teammate too. And I'm on the field and off the field.
Hernandez is recognized as one of the best closers in baseball in 1999, with his 2nd career trip to the All-Star game. But even in the midst of one of his best seasons, the big righty didn't let it affect him.
I'd rather fear failure than fear success. Failure is going to drive me to do good. Success is going to make you complacent. I want to earn everything. I always wanted to be in the top 5 of every category that a reliever should be in. Because if I start settling for less, then I'll be settling for top 10 and top 20, and then that doesn't drive me.
Stabilizing factor in the bullpen, and Roberto was also a stabilizing factor in the clubhouse. I think he was one of the leaders out there, a guy who could really kind of talk and have some wisdom behind him after all those years of experience. And I thought he was a great anchor to that bullpen, which was a very good bullpen. In addition to that, I think he was one of the key spokespeople in the clubhouse as well.
Hernandez wasn't the only Devil Ray to make the '99 All-Star team.
And a fly ball hit deep to right field. Way back goes Buhner, and this baby's gone.
The club's other representative came to town with quite a reputation, and for half a season before hurting his back, Jose Canseco lived up to the hype.
His batting practice was amazing. You know, Larry Rothschild would stand there. He thought he was going to bend some of the catwalks at Tropicana Field. Balls would disappear into the upper decks of stadiums. People would come watch him take his batting practice. And, you know, all the talk that year '99 was, well, he's going to break the single-season home run record.
Number 31 for Jose Canseco.
When we got Jose, it was an interesting acquisition. You know, and I had seen him across the field and, you know, had seen him in the World Series and everything else, so it was interesting. He was actually a pretty good guy in the clubhouse and really just showed up and played, you know, and unfortunately the bat gave out and, you know, otherwise it might have been a historic season.
He did everything you could ask of a player. And I know he came with all this baggage, and then since then has been involved in other situations. All I can tell you is that Jose Canseco in Tampa Bay not only played hard, but he played the game the right way and was extremely productive for us till he hurt his back.
Canseco was on a tear that year. He had 31 home runs going into, I think, into the All-Star break. And, you know, every time he touched one, it was a long ways. You know, he had a long homers. But we had that swagger a little bit. You know, he got hurt and we started losing that swagger.
And that ball is gone.
Drafted in the second round in 1999, Carl Crawford could have played big-time college football or basketball, but quickly showed he had all the tools and the desire to make it to the big leagues.
On the very first day, our minor league staff said, no, this is a baseball player that was real good in the other sports. It wasn't a situation where you had a football player that just had to learn how to play baseball. Carl had that feel, even though he was so good in football and basketball. Our minor league staff saw it immediately, and it didn't take him very long, and everybody got a chance to see it.
If you got a chance to see him when he was young and in his prime and running around, there aren't too many guys out there with that kind of physical athleticism, strength. He could do things on the field that other people nobody else could do. In addition to that, he was an extremely motivated guy.
Crawford's work ethic and dazzling on-field play never wavered during his first 6 seasons in Tampa Bay, despite never playing on a winning team. That all changed in 2008 when the Houston native and the franchise got a chance to go to the postseason for the first time.
I definitely felt some sense of like being there before and being there after. You know, I was one of the players who got to experience both sides. So for me, it was just everything because, you know, I went from thinking that this could never happen to it actually happening. So to see the transformation in my eyes right before me like that, it was just amazing. So I definitely didn't take it for granted and enjoyed every moment.
I was fortunate to have Barry Bonds. I was in Pittsburgh when Bonds was a kid playing left field, about as good a left fielder as you ever want to see. Carl's 1A. I mean, he was that good.
Crawford would go on to be one of 2 players in franchise history to make 4 All-Star squads, earning him a spot as one of the best ever to play for Tampa Bay.
I always felt every day when the game was over that Carl gave you everything he had on that given day. And I hope he's appreciated for what he did here, because I think he truly was a superstar, and I think as much credit as Evan gets, and should, without Carl, I don't think this franchise turns the corner either.
It's hard to imagine now, but at the end of spring training in 2007, Carlos Pena wasn't in the Devil Rays' plan. But fate intervened, and the power-hitting first baseman got a second chance that he didn't waste.
I know what it was that clicked for Carlos Pena when he got here. We had a guy named Norton who was going to break for spring training with us and be our first baseman, and he got hurt. Something clicked in his leg or something, and that's what got Carlos Pena to make our big league club and end up hitting 40-plus home runs.
It was really cool to see his career kind of blossom once he got over here. Big power, knew the strike zone, knew a strike in a ball, would take his walks. I don't know, I couldn't tell you how many home runs he hit over here, but he hit a lot of home runs for us and could really play first base.
Pena became a key piece of the team that turned the franchise into a winner for the first time in 2008. The following year, he was part of the Rays' biggest ever All-Star game contingent, on an American League team managed by Joe Madden. From the day he was called up in 2008, Evan Longoria seemed to announce his presence with an understated confidence uncommon for a rookie. It didn't take long before he became that guy who always seemed to be right in the middle of every big moment, including helping the organization turn the dream of becoming a winner into reality.
The expectations had become real at that point, and it was like, okay, we're contenders after the break. Like we need to step up. You know, this is a real thing. And then, you know, when it happened, it was a we did it moment. You know, like yeah, it was definitely real. It wasn't like I didn't know what the significance of it was.
Along with the team success came individual recognition for Longoria, including being named the 2008 Rookie of the Year and earning the first of his 3 All-Star Game nods.
If there was a situation where he needed a play made on defense, hit the ball to Evan. I mean, we talk about game 162 a lot, but in the day before in the Matt Joyce homer, there was the moment on the mound with Jeremy Hellickson where they all got together in a bases-loaded situation, and Evan said, hey, have him hit a 2-hopper to me, I'll start a triple play. And he did. So, you know, there's those moments you wanted Evan Longoria to be there because you had a feeling with that old soul mentality that nothing was going to overwhelm him.
Along with Carl Crawford, the 2 most important players that have ever put on a Rays or Devil Rays uniform. Evan, the 3rd pick in the 2006 draft, and 2 years later, he's making his debut, and he's helping to lead a team to a World Series in his rookie season, a winning Rookie of the Year, and making all the plays. He had that special it factor too, like a Carl Crawford, like a David Price, where the moment was never too big for him, and as big as the moment could get, he would always rise his level to meet that moment.
As the first pick in the 2007 draft out of Vanderbilt, David Price was a can't-miss prospect that almost immediately lived up to the lofty expectations.
When you're the #1 pick, you have good tools. You have good skill, but what separated David was his mental approach. He can handle anything. There's a kid out of Vanderbilt and comes in the biggest stage in the United States, ready to go to the World Series, lights out. Character, strong, tenacity, his mind, and wonderful physical skill.
When David first came up then as a starter, he was refined. His stuff was a little bit different, but it basically was a good 2-seam fastball and a curveball. You know, his changeup had not come along yet. There was still some erraticness to the way he pitched. He walked his fair share of guys, but a very quick learn. By the end of '09 and then in 2010, when he finished runner-up in the Cy Young in 2010, he kind of pitched like a veteran. He didn't pitch like a young guy anymore. He ended up being, I think, a quicker learn than any of us expected.
Price makes 4 All-Star Game appearances in 5 years for the Rays, starting in 2010, a period of time when he establishes himself as one of the game's most dominant starters, becoming the Rays' first 20-game winner and Cy Young Award recipient.
I was fortunate enough to be a September call-up when he won his Cy Young in 2012. He had a lot of really good games. It's hard to remember specifically, but I just remember there were games where he would throw 110 pitches and 98 fastballs. Like he would just attack, and it's always a pleasure to watch him throw the baseball.
He knew what he wanted to do up there. You know, he had the pitches, the fastball, he had the cutter, he had the slider, he had the changeup. He just mixed it up. You know, whatever was working that day or whatever he felt he was going to throw the hitters, he executed those pitches. He took us deep into the games, which is something you always look for in the starting pitchers, and he battled. Never wanted to come out because that was David Price.
Not everyone's path to the big leagues and all-star status is as direct as Price's. For some, like Ben Zobrist, the final destination is anything but guaranteed.
We got him in a trade, and he came over and he played shortstop. And then we sent Ben down to the minor leagues. And then we called Ben back up a little bit later and started to move him around the field, you know, because he was a shortstop when he got to us. And we asked him to play second base, we asked him to play the outfield. So those things kind of morphed into what he is. You know, we called him the Super U everyday player.
he starts to play some second base. He starts to play some outfield. And when he plays second base, he's almost a Gold Glove type second baseman. When he plays in the outfield, especially in right field, he's almost like a Gold Glove type right fielder. Next thing you know, he starts to hit a little bit, and he's a switch hitter. And that was one of the beauties of the Rays back in 2008, 9, 10, 11, was that because of guys like Ben Zobrist and Willie Ibar, that we had a 25-man roster, though, that played like 29 or 30, because you had switch hitters, you had guys who play multiple positions.
Zobrist's role in the team's success doesn't go unnoticed by the rest of the league. He's rewarded with 2 All-Star Game selections in 2009 and 2013 during his tenure with the Rays.
A self-made man, a guy that went from Olivet Nazarene to Dallas Baptist to a guy that was up in the big leagues for a while in 07, goes down, and now is a 2- or 3-time All-Star and a World Series MVP. If you would have told me back in 2007 that all was going to happen, I would have said, good luck, we're all counting on you.
2015 was supposed to be the year Alex Cobb took over as the Rays' #1 starter. But after his season was wiped out because of injury before it ever got started, Chris Archer got his shot at the lead role.
I just remember that year just really coming into my own, figuring out who I was as a pitcher. I started to get a lot less contact and started striking out a lot more people. I made some minor adjustments, and I was 26 years old, and I had 3 seasons in the big leagues, and I was just more mature as a pitcher.
Got the miss. Fastball got him.
Archer is rewarded for his 9-6 record, 2.74 ERA, and 147 strikeouts in the first half with his first All-Star selection, an honor he would receive again in 2017.
There are great players that never became All-Stars. Kirk Gibson had a tremendous career with incredible October moments. He was never an All-Star when you look back. There are other guys that never had that moment. Chris has had a couple of them now, and he should be very, very proud of that. I think he wears the Rays uniform very proudly.
In the franchise's first 20 seasons, only 36 Tampa Bay players have been awarded a spot on the All-Star team. It's an exclusive club that will only grow in the coming years as the next generation of Rays take their place among the game's elite.